106.7 Lite FM.
106.7 Lite FM, Cubby and Christine. How cool is this, Christine?
I know we've been a fan of yours for years. It's so nice to meet you in person. Katie Couric joins us.
Katie!
Well,
Welcome,
great
welcome.
to be here. Thank you all so much for having me. And I'm a big fan of
Absolutely.
yours, too.
No,
so
fan
happy
of
to be
yours.
here. No, you. I
Actually,
love you.
We're all family now, right? You're part of the
Yes.
iHeartRadio family now.
I am. I'm really excited to be a part of iHeart. I've got a new podcast that's launching, and I've known Bob Pittman for a long time and know a lot of the folks who work here. So it's fun to be back.
Yeah.
It's a perfect
Well, not
fit.
back here.
Well, here, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, the podcast is called Next Question with Katie Couric.
Right.
And I love that title.
Do you? Because it's hard to come up with the title for a podcast these days, right?
Right.
Isn't it?
You
Yeah.
know, but I think that it was sort of emblematic of my insatiable curiosity about a lot of topics and a lot of people and what's going on in the country and the world. So we thought that might be kind of a good thing because I think people know me for my interviews and my next question.
And that's what I thought
Right.
with the
Yeah.
title. I think
Yeah.
you nailed it with the title.
It is perfect, and it also doesn't pigeonhole you. You can talk to anybody about everything.
Right, exactly.
That you're interested in.
I did think about POI, persons of interest. I thought that would be really good, but sometimes I'm tackling big, sort of thorny topics.
Right.
So it's less about the person and more about the issue. So we thought Next Question kind of covered the gamut.
Yeah. Well, the first episode, I mean, it's a little heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, we
I
start
know.
off
Is this too
intense.
heavy for your listeners?
Well, I mean, but it must be a big topic, if
Well,
you're talking about it.
So I did actually a preview episode. The first episode, we're launching with an episode called The ABCs of CBD, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I did drop, as they say in the business, a preview episode about pornography and how accessible it is to young kids and how the impact, the unintended consequences of this accessibility and the impact it's having particularly on young men who are watching a great deal of violent, misogynistic porn and how it is kind of manifesting itself into their view of what a sexual relationship is supposed to be. So a lot of violent actions with, and choking and forced sexual acts that make a lot of women uncomfortable. Now, whatever consenting adults want to do, if they discuss it, I'm not placing judgment here. But it is.
You're talking about how quickly you could fall into that trap if you're a 10-year-old kid
right,
typing
or
something.
if this is listen, it's cultural conditioning. If we see images of certain acts or certain behavior that are coming at us fast and furiously and sort of wiring our minds and our emotions, then sometimes it will result in behavior later on whenever they become sexually active. And there was this recent survey that showed 1 in 4 women are actually afraid during sex because I think in some cases it's become increasingly violent. So I interviewed a woman who's an expert on this. I interviewed a 30-year-old who said her boyfriend was choking her where she almost couldn't breathe and forcing her to do other things that made her really uncomfortable. And, it's just a very important, interesting podcast. And we end with a sex ed counselor from a Quaker school, believe it or not, in Philadelphia, who says you have to teach porn-informed sex education now. And parents, I want them to be aware that they might not understand that their kids are consuming this content on their iPhones. It's so easy to do, and that sites like Pornhub get more views than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined.
Oh, wow.
And many of these kids are 9, 10, 11 years old when they're starting to see it. So it really was kind of a clarion call to parents and also for women. And as Dan Savage said, I think in an interview I listened to in preparation for this, he said, gay men say, "What do you like?" And so that's a really important conversation, I think, for any kind of partners to engage in so that one doesn't feel really uncomfortable and even threatened.
Right. So it's a dark topic.
It is a dark topic,
But
and
people need to know about it. They have to learn
yeah.
something about it.
Yeah, I think it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not doing it because it's super graphic. I mean, believe me, it was pretty uncomfortable.
You're
'cause
opening
I'm-
eyes.
But I think it's something that that people don't probably know about and that they should be thinking about when it comes to
I think you're right.
this kind of pornography.
I think it's a great way to open up the conversation, especially
Yeah.
as you said with children. If this is normalized for them,
Right.
we have to be really careful about the messages that they have access to.
Right.
So it's great that you're shedding light on it.
I think parents have a hard enough time talking about sex. I know I probably wasn't that great talking to my own daughters about it. And but I think it's just critically important, especially given the kind of stuff that they're consuming.
It's funny to hear you talk about the internet because I know you hear it all the time. That famous, what is the internet from?
What? No, I didn't even say the. I said, what is internet?
Yes, exactly.
Which makes me sound even.
Which turned into a Super Bowl commercial. You did the
Yes,
Super Bowl
it did.
commercial. Yeah.
Yes. Was
you remember
that funny?
Christine?
No, what was
It was you and it was Bryant, right?
Yes, Brian Gumbel
You guys
and
were
Elizabeth
doing-
Vargas. It was back in 1994, and I was on the Today Show, and we were talking about, this was just really coming to be.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the @@ symbol and what does it mean? Is it around?
You gave out an
about?
email address. You said, and for more info on this, you can go to gunviolence@nbc.com or something. And you and Bryant were going, what is that at
Right,
thing?
and we just
okay.
sounded like complete idiots.
Oh.
But I challenge anyone to go back to 1994 and see if they were really as well versed on the internet
Right.
back
Not
then
at
as
all.
we are now. It's just
No.
it is really funny.
And what was your
though,
famous
isn't it?
quote again? It was like, Allison. You asked,
Allison, what is internet?
internet? Yeah, that's right. But that
Thanks,
was
Cubby.
early. That was very early. I mean, I don't think I even had
Things
it.
have
I got
changed.
my first AOL like in '95, and that was like
I remember
'94.
we
We
all
still have
those,
it.
the
dial-up?
Oh yeah, memories, man. Now we're talking podcast with Katie Couric.
Right,
It's so cool.
exactly.
We've come a long way, man.
So you cover a lot of topics. I know one of the things you're going to touch upon, I'm really interested in learning more about, is CBD.
Right.
Is that really helpful? Is that
Yes, well, that's what
Yeah.
that was my next
Yeah.
question as well, Christine. And I kept seeing it everywhere. You see it in face creams, you see it in olive oil. There are even CBD tampons and dog food. And you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just exploded. It's going to be a $20 billion industry by 2024. That's what people predict. And I wanted to understand not only, where it comes from and how it differs from THC and what part of the marijuana plant it's from, but also, like, how do you know what you're getting is actually working? And in fact, does it work, period?
Does
And,
it work at all?
And
Right.
it works on your neurotransmitters and apparently reduces anxiety. So I tried a lot of products. I talked to experts. And I talked to Kristen Bell, who's a regular user of CBD. She uses the tincture, which you put under your tongue. And she's been very open about her anxiety. And, it was just really, really interesting. I learned a lot. And, I tried these CBD gumdrops.
I do too. Yeah,
And
I actually take them.
You like them?
But I don't think they're doing anything. I
I
think I
don't
got scammed.
I don't
Yeah.
think.
I
and they're
paid $70 for
expensive.
Sour
They
Patch
are.
Kids.
They're really
Like, there's
expensive.
No, they're like $70. I bought like 100 of them, and they taste like Sour Patch Kids. And I don't think they're doing anything.
Yeah.
I bought gumdrops and they cost $50. $50. They're in a beautiful box.
Yeah.
And I thought they tasted like potpourri. Personally, I didn't like them.
didn't feel anything.
And I didn't.
It didn't do a thing, huh?
But so I wanted to know: is it a placebo effect?
Right.
And or are some people more sensitive to the CBD than others? Are we just like not good candidates for it, Cubby? I don't know.
I don't know
or
either.
could it help in the lotions for your joints? If you have
Oh
joint
yeah, my
pain?
husband put some on
Yeah.
his foot because he has some, his feet give him problems, and he said it felt better in the morning, but who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But I think what's really interesting is has so much promise. It's being used for childhood epilepsy, for seizures. That's actually approved by the FDA. It's showing a lot of promise for opioid addiction. So I think there's something to it. It just needs a lot more research, and it's completely unregulated. So
Right.
it's kind of a case of buyer beware. What you're buying may not have the CBD that it claims to have, or it may not be as pure. So I think it's such a new area of research and, manufacturing, if you will, that I just thought it was super interesting to learn about.
In fact, talking about this may sound funny in 20 years, like talking about the internet in 1994.
Yeah. What is Allison, what is CBD?
There you go.
Save that.
We'll start
Save
another
that.
meme.
It's October 8th, 2019. All right, you got that on tape? Got
Yes,
it. Good.
you've got it. And your celebrity interviews?
Well, I'm doing, I am talking to interesting people as well. I mean, not only am I doing CBD and pornography, I'm talking about esports.
Personally.
Well, I'm talking. I know, gosh, what does she do in her spare time? I'm talking about the phenomenon of esports. I'm talking about ageism. Is it the last socially acceptable ism
that's
in
a
our
good one.
culture, which I think is really interesting. But I'm also I'm talking about online radicalization of white supremacists. So obviously, big, serious topics. But I want to have fun too. So I interviewed Jennifer Garner about her new company, Once Upon a Farm, her organic baby food company, which actually has a very serious side, and that is they're trying to make sure it's affordable for families who can't afford expensive baby food. So they're doing it through the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children. And I just love her. She's so great and real. I'm interviewing Julie Andrews, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other personalities. I'm just starting, and I want to be topical, so I don't want to do too many things in advance. I started a vaping podcast in August, and all of a sudden, vaping exploded. I was like, oh! So I've had to update it a million times.
That's the problem with podcasts sometimes. You have to get so far ahead, but you don't want to get too far ahead.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I still want to be able to react to topical things. I want to talk about this sort of, I'd love to talk about the media landscape and how polarized it is, and how you get one point of view or one set of facts from one organization and one from another. And no wonder consumers are confused and the country is so divided, because it's almost as if we're, living in two different countries, depending on the content you're consuming. And a friend of mine said people gravitate to the news outlets for affirmation, not information. So it's a very strange time, I think, in the culture.
Do you think in your podcast you'll get political at all?
I think I'd like to, because I would like to examine some of these big important topics. I'd like to talk to some of the candidates, but I was watching a Fox News clip, and it was very different about sort of what did Joe Biden and Hunter Biden do? Is there something that we should know about? And so it's really hard to do politics without having a particular viewpoint today, and
I remember when seeing the breaking news on TV used to be a big deal.
It used to mean
I think
something.
it's on nonstop
Yes.
on the chroma key for for CNN and Fox News. It's always breaking news.
Now it's actually, I was watching the CBS Evening News, and they have breaking news on all the time too. And I think, I think it's to convey a sense of urgency in what they're saying, given the fact that much of it has been available for hours before they broadcast. And I think that's one of the challenges of the news landscape
People want
today.
real time.
Well, I think it's available 24/7. It pops up on your phone. So I think the idea of people waiting till 6:30 at night to find out what's going on is such an antiquated notion. So I think they have to impart this idea that this is just happening now, and you better watch or you're going to miss it.
Urgency. And also my understanding is when you're watching the news, they'll do little sound effects and stuff because they know that you're splitting your time with your phone. So they want you to look up at the screen as well.
Right.
So
there's
right. They're trying to get us.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
interesting.
All the
Well,
time,
we're living
yeah.
in an attention economy where people, there are so many demands on our attention, whether it's, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or Apple News, or all this, stuff that's coming
I'll
at
just
us. They
subscribe
have
to Wake Up Call. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Katie. I
Oh,
will
yes.
subscribe to Wake Up Call. If you go to katiekirk.com, you can actually get a weekly, or not weekly, a daily.
Daily, yeah.
like,
So that's what
headlines.
I'm trying to do for people. If, a lot of us don't want to be slaves to our phones and be on it 24/7. It's not healthy, as we all know. So I'm trying to do kind of curating content and news stories, and some of the stories that aren't getting attention on this morning this morning newsletter called Wake Up Call. So I've got a great team of women who are looking at stories and kind of helping people, giving them synopses of what's happening and also some inspiring stories, some interesting profiles, so that people can say, okay, I kind of know what's going on. I can go on with my day.
Right.
Because I think there are news junkies who, want to know every development, but there are other people who have busy lives who are doing a lot of different things in their work, taking care of kids.
But they want to be plugged in.
Yeah, they want
Just
to be
enough.
plugged in, but
Yeah.
they don't want to be, constantly. They want to pull the plug occasionally
Right.
too.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah. So
like the
yeah, that's
idea of
just
that.
so I started my own media company, and in addition to doing this podcast, I'm working on a few documentaries. I Wake Up Call, the newsletter. I'm
The
working
memoir?
with purpose. I'm writing a memoir.
Wow.
I'm working with purpose-driven brands to help do storytelling that matters to them. Whether it's Procter & Gamble that cares deeply about gender equality or LGBTQ issues. I'm working with them on some digital series, and so I'm really having fun kind of controlling my own destiny and fate and not having to work for the man.
All right, I know what you're
Is
saying.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Why not? Because I feel
Yeah.
like I've established a reputation over
Yeah.
the years as someone who's fair, and I think also I've established track record of credibility. So why not try to take advantage of that at a time where I think faith and trust in institutions is really declining.
Well, we know you have to leave pretty soon. Any final words? Anything we haven't hit yet that you want to promote?
No, oh, you're so sweet to ask me that. No.
I always feel bad when an interview ends. I'm like,
Yeah, I
did I
know.
get everything out that they
No,
wanted
well,
to
you're
get
so
out?
nice. I mean, honestly, I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all about a lot of
thank
different
you.
things because, that's one of the nice things about radio and about podcasts is that you have an opportunity to have a conversation that's more than 2 or 3 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And increasingly, certainly on television, 5 minutes is the equivalent of War and Peace.
Wow.
Right,
And so it's nice just to be able to have a relaxed conversation. So thank you for having
Oh,
me.
it's our pleasure. You
We're
come
fans.
back anytime. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will
Katie
definitely
Couric.
check out the podcast.
And check out the podcast.
Yes.
Next question with Katie Couric on the iHeartRadio app, right?
Exactly.
Nice and
Or
easy for
wherever
us.
you get your podcast.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
106.7 Lights FM.